Health Education Lecture Series. I'm your host, Gurdeep Singh Sandhu, homeopathic consultant. My clinic address is 9701 Sarah and Court, Dublin, California, 94568. And my phone number is 408 687 1899. Anytime, at any age, for any disease. When you are tired of any treatment, please call me back for your second consultation, second opinion about your disease. And if ever you want to be treated with a scientific homeopathic approach to your health, then call 408 687 1899. 408 687 1899. And even if you are far away and you cannot call me, then you can send me the email as well. And to get your answer, homeo medicine, HOMEOMEDICINE at yahoo.com. So anytime you can contact me by any media. At this time, you are listening me on Radio Sabrang, Radio YouTube and Facebook, and all the medias are our daily routine that we are delivering lectures on health education lecture series, how the life was created, how it was developed, and step by step, what were the hurdles came in front of this life. And even then, if we are surviving after those hurdles, the life has passed those hurdles and life is going on, then even then we have to recognize those hurdles recognize those hurdles and how to get rid of those hurdles. So in this lecture series, we have discussed about the components of a cell. A cell has many components, though it's the smallest unit of the cell, which is working inside the body and performing all the functions which are performed by our body. But it's not that only one thing is doing all the functions. It's not like robot. But in the cell, there are many more different components. They are performing their duties according to assigned duties within the cell. And within the cell means there are trillions of cells inside this body, and all the cells are performing similar type of duties. Their components, in other words, you can say their components are performing a similar type of duties, and united duty, a combination of all the cells' duty, whatever they have done in a large scale, performs the functioning of this body. Because we know that the cell unites, forms the tissue, tissue unites, forms the organ unites, form a system, and systems unites to form this whole body. And ultimately, the functioning of all the system collectively results into a normal life. And if there be anything wrong inside the system, and the whole body feels it, the abnormality and the problems, this whole body and life feels all those things. And ultimately, if we go back from the body to downward and ultimately we will reach from the system, from the organ to system, and system to tissues, and tissues to cell, and ultimately we reach the single unit, that is the cell, which becomes sick. And cell does not mean that I am talking about only one cell, because there are trillions of cells inside this body, and they all are performing a similar type of function. In other words, you can say the components of this cell are performing a similar type of function in each cell, and collectively the function of all the different components, similar type of components, when collectively comes out in a resultant, they perform a function inside our body. For example, there are cells in the lungs, there are tissues in the lungs, and the lungs are itself an organ. Lungs are the part of the system of respirations, and the respiration is a part of a life, part of this body. In this way, the description or the defects of any cell collectively results in any type of disease, any type of abnormalities, and that abnormality is considered as a disease. So, in our last lectures, we have because we are delivering these lectures one day in English, the other day in Punjabi, the other day in Hindi, and in this way, we have already described this description in Punjabi, Hindi, and English, in all the languages previously, so that you, all of you, know, who are listening these lectures regularly, that the cell has a component, and cell has a wall. So all the description has been given to all of you, that the cell has a wall, that is known as a cell membrane, cell and its characteristics. What are the characteristics of this cell membrane, and what are the functions of this cell membrane? Then after that, we have discussed about the cytoplasm, what it is, and what is the function of this cytoplasms, because it's everything inside the cell membrane is considered as the cytoplasm, and cytoplasm has different kind of combinations of organelles, or organelles, which perform different functions inside the cell, and collectively their function results in a normal life if they are working normally. If they become sick, then ultimately the resultant, from one cell to the other, ultimately the organ will become sick, and then the organ will result into system sick, and the system sick will result into the a particular type of disease, and the whole system will feel, whole body will feel that problems, because all the systems inside body are related to each other, are cooperating to each other in their function. And that is why a normal life is originated when all the systems are functioning normally, and their resultant is a normal life. But if any of the system is defective, when I say any of the system is defective, I am saying that the ultimate cell, ultimate unit of any system is the unit that is known as a cell. And and then we came across that we have to find it out, that what a cell has in it which is functioning, because there are many more functions. It's not only the one unit or the one part of the cell is performing these duties. There are many more organelles inside the cells, so those we are describing. And first of all, describing these organelles inside the cell, I told you about that the cytoplasm, just like our environment, just like in the sea, there are different animals moving inside the water, and they do not feel any problem in moving inside the water, because that is their normal behavior of living, a normal style of living. The same way as there is a environment, in our environment there is a air with having a pressure of 480 millimeter of mercury all the times, and we feel normal in that pressure, and we move in that pressure normally. It do not cause any problems for us, that pressure. So in this way, this cytoplasm is considered the internal environment of the cell. And in this internal environment of the cell, all the organelles which are living inside the cytoplasms feel easy to move into that cytoplasms and to function within the cell in the content of the cytoplasms. So after that, we have discussed about the nucleus, the bigger portion, the bigger organelles inside the uh, cell that has an important function inside our body, inside our cell as well, and which preserves our very costly informations. That information is coming from our genetic relations, forefathers, and those genes are preserved in this nucleus in the shape of DNA and RNA. And then ultimately, this nucleus was also having a boundary, outside boundary, that is a type of yellow type of thing which we see in the microscopes. And that boundary is also the similar like of the cell membrane. It's a double layered membrane over the nucleus, and inside that double layer membranes, there are protoplasm. The just like the cytoplasm, I told you, is the internal environment, you can say. In just like our environment, just like the sea environment, just like the in within the cell, there is an environment, and that environment is considered as the cytoplasm. But inside the inside the nucleus, the similar type of environment, that is similar type of solution, in which all the things which are preserved inside the nucleus remains and are preserved, that is known as protoplasm. So all these things has been discussed previously in all the lectures, and how we can identify in microscopes. Yes, all these things has been discussed. And after that, when we were discussing this nucleus, I discussed with you that there is a chromosomes. That is the main important role of our this is nucleus, just to preserve the chromosomes, and chromosome preserves the DNA and characteristics of our previous forefathers. So from that particular point in the nucleus, we can identify that who belongs to who, and how we are related to our forefathers, and how my family and own word is related to me. That is preserved inside the nucleus of any cell. And the same way, it's a safe. We considered it is a safe that preserve the costly things of our life, of our generations, time to time. Then we discussed about the chromosomes, what it is, what contains the DNA and RNA, all that, and about the genes. These are basically a storehouse of preservations, and these are like threads. These are like the stairs, you can say, step by step, made up stairs that, or you can say the boxes. Different boxes are made within the genes, and genes are just like a long ladder, long ladder, just like attached to the to the wall. And the same way, all the genes, all the threads are united together and are preserving in a different parts the different memory of our forefathers. So in this way, the chromosomes are the important particles, important organelles inside the nucleus, which are preserving our previous life, our forefathers' life, their characteristics, their height, their color of eyes, color of skin, and everything is preserved over there. And you can say it's the control. It's a control center, you can say. And after that, we discussed about the endoplasmic reticulums, and that is a type of liquid filled capsules. Just like outside, we see the capsules are filled with the powders, and capsules are filled with the liquids, and all the same type. These endoplasmic reticulums are filled with that pouches, you can say. In other words, you can say the pouches. And by these pouches, substances, garbage, whatever is extra produced inside the cell in the nucleus, and if it has to be disposed of, this is packed in these capsules, and it is discharged outside the cell through the cell membrane. So just like it has a fat stored into it, it has protein stored into it, and all these things are these capsules. Just like the capsules are made by rice brands, capsules are made by vegetable juices, and all that. Similarly, these endoplasmic reticulum are made up of the chirby, made of the fat, you can say, and the protein as well. And the function to store the garbage, to dispose of the garbage. These are garbage cans, you can say, in other words. And they send the from every part of the cell, they collect the garbage, make the pouches, and discharge it out from the cell through the permeabilities. After that, we discussed about the mitochondria. Basically, the mitochondria is considered as the powerhouse, just like the electrical powerhouse you see at every village. Outside the village, there is a powerhouse specially designed for that village, and then from there, electricity and power goes to each and every house. So mitochondria are the supply house of the energy, and it is like you can say it's also covered in membranes, because just to identify separately, they are also like a plate, like a saucer, and these saucers are also having double layered, and their main important function is to supply oxygen, supply energy. And that is why the mitochondria are concerned with the respiratory systems mainly. And if ever, means if there is no release of garbage from our body, ultimately there will be suffocation. The same way the mitochondria generates the energy and continue the respiratory systems. And in this way, basically these are the energy producing power centers in any cells. And after that, we discussed about the plastids. So plastids are, they are made of sugars and protein, and these are the you can say the reserved stock of food. These are known as reserved stock of food when someone is not eating food regularly, and but this body needs 1700 calories per hour to run this body efficiently, normal functioning, everything. And it is not possible if 1700, the food is not sufficient to produce the 1700 calories per hour. So these are the plastids, which are the reserve fat, which are the reserve energy, fat and proteins and everything, which may be used at the time when you are not eating food. And they are capable of producing or converting into energy, and then the body can run out even without food for some times. As long as these plastids are there, they can make it. So these are the function of the this plastids. In this way, after that, we discussed about the ribosomes. They are also made up of protein, and they are different shapes of the ribosomes is also circulating inside the cell membrane, and then they are you can say the carpenters. They are the carpenters which can convert the material coming from outside into making the proteins. They can make proteins from the materials which they are receiving from outside of the cells, and that proteins are used inside the cell to produce energies. After that, we have discussed about the Golgi body, and it is called Golgi apparatus. And this Golgi apparatus basically you can say that these are also made up of proteins and lipids, and these are like also pouches. and these pouches are also filled with the some liquids, and that liquid preserve. Ribosomes were making the proteins from the other substances, synthesizing, and the Golgi body is the pouches which preserved protein made by ribosomes. Golgi body apparatus is preserving it so that ultimately, when there is a loss of those proteins, they may be used at that time. So, Golgi apparatus is also an important function inside our cell, that they can preserve the energy sources, that when the outsider supply is stopped, they are not getting outside supply for the proteins, then the inside the cell, these Golgi body apparatus are used to liberate energy, to bring out energy for the use of normal life. After that, we discussed about the this microbodies, and these are also the things which can digest. Basically, a substances comes from the outside of the cell, or it is prepared inside the cell. Then how it is used to produce energy? How our food is converted into energy? That is done by the microbodies. So these microbodies are just like again reopening the things. Golgi body was preserving the things, and those preserved things are used whenever it is required. And now these microbodies are in function when you are not eating food and you need energy, because body all the time it needs energy, otherwise we will not be able to work. In this way, the microbody at that time you can say the deorganize, or they can open those pouches which are having protein and sugar and all that, lipids, all these things are inside the cells, and then they open it, and they are reused. They were prepared inside the cell, and they were now reused. First of all, you are eating more food. You are eating more food, and ultimately more fat, more protein, more carbohydrates gone inside the cells from the circulations, and ultimately the excess of fat, protein, carbohydrates is preserved in pouches, and these are ribosomes, and ultimately they are prepared in pouches. But when we are not eating food and that food has been already utilized, whatever was circulating into the blood, then under that condition, this food pouches are reopened to be used to create energy by the microbodies. And after that, this we have discussed about the cytoskeletons. These are the things which can store and release everything whatever has been done inside the system, inside the nucleus, to store that function and to release that functions. Means they are the main barriers, and those barriers are releasing or controlling or preserving the energy things inside the cell. When it is extra, they preserve it. When it is required and they have already preserved it, they release it. In this way, when we are not eating food, or even many days we are at fast, under those conditions, these releases these pouches to create energy inside the cell, so that we can survive under those conditions when we are not eating the foods. After that, we have discussed about the cilia's flagellas. Many times I have discussed about this thing, that inside the body, not only that we see hairs on our head, and we see hair on our beards and mustaches and all, and even on the body outside we see the hairs. No, these type of hairs are also inside the body. Are all the organelles which are having a gap or loop or internal tunnel, just like digestive canal, or you can say the canal, intestinal canal, and respiratory system, just like the respiratory bronchus tubes, and it goes to the lungs. All this kind of channelization system inside the body has the cilia. And these cilia, just like electric poles, just like electric poles, and the wires are on the electric pole, and they help to transmit the energy forward. In this way, these cilia are the electric poles which transmit energy, or which transmit or move forward all the stuffs, just like in the bronchial tubes. Air is coming from outside, and just to move that air forward, these cilia help. In this way, in our nose, do you see the cilia? But it's not only in the nose, also in the bronchial tubes there are cilia, and they are doing the same functions. In this way, in our food pipes, we see the cilia inside that, and with that, the help of cilia, in energy is created inside the mucous membranes of the intestines, and with that energy, the movement is resulted. That is barborygmy, you can say that, and and with that, the food moves forward, and continuously it moves forward, and with the help of this cilia. So cilia are just like you are pushing something. You are pushing something to go forward. In this way, cilia and flagella, these are the name given to those substances which are like hairs outside in our body, and they functions to produce a current wave, and with that current wave, the internal material move forward. In other simple language, I can say that. And these cilia are like hairs. Flagella and cilia, I use these two things at the same time. Flagella is like just like you can say a combination of cilia. You can see the combination of cilia, and it is like a fish, just like the tail of the fish just move in the water. You see that word. Similarly, flagella moves, and it helps in moving the stuffs inside those poles, inside those channels. So this is the function of this one. And after that, we have discussed about the organelles of the cell, that is centrosomes and centrioles. Centrosome and centrioles, a type of, just like you see the clothes, and there are fibers going north to south and south to north, and east to west, in this way, just like in the clothes. That 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 type of structure is constructed inside the cell, through which a blocks are made. These are the blocks made inside the central cytoplasms, and all the organelles remains in their own component, and travels from one component to the other components, and they have their own channels, how they will move. If they are to move from our his own channels, how they will, in what direction they can go, they are in this way designed. The centrosomes and the centrioles are a type of blocks, the round blocks of that ones. So they move in this way. How they move it? So they move from their block to the other blocks, and these are just like the block, you can say the fibers of a cloth. Okay, crosswise fibers of the cloth, and forming the channels in this way. And the other thing I think I've discussed about the vacuoles. Vacuoles are the empty spaces. Suppose if extra substances has come up inside, or the extra these organelles are made up of, then where they will be stored. Just like we need more chairs, and when we need more chairs, and now at this time we do not need more chairs, where they will be stored. Ultimately, those extra stuffs are stored. They take the place of the vacuums, the empty place. So there is a empty place inside the cell, just to give space to the extra stuffs coming up into the cells. And when, suppose, extra stuff has accumulated inside the cell, And what will happen? When you take more parathas, more food and everything, you are packed up. Ultimately, you feel breathlessness. You feel tiredness because there is a lack of oxygen in the cell. Because if ever anything goes out from anything, if any substance you fill in a gap, but first of all, any empty utensil is filled up with air, and now you are filling the water into it, the air will go out. Whereas inside the cell, for our life, air is a necessary component. It needs air. And when all the vacuums inside the cell, I'm just giving the briefing of that one, in short, if those vacuums are decreased in number, it means extra stuff has entered into the cell, and the air vacuum are decreased. It means the air which is required for the normal respiration, inspiration and expirations, and that is in deficient quantity, in a minimum quantity. And then at that time, what will happen? If you are not getting sufficient oxygen, there will be breathlessness. And if there is not sufficient oxygen in the cell, you will feel cyanosis, weakness in general. The function of the cell will be abnormal, weak functions. You can say abnormality means weak functions, not excess of functions. In this way, so these are the vacuums which reserves the oxygen, and whenever any other extra stuff comes into the cell, these vacuums give space to them to be adjusted over there, but not that much, because they show the signs. If they are squeezed, suppose there are 10 vacuoles in a cell, and you have put some more stuff into the cells, and ultimately they are decreased into their size, or they are decreased into their numbers, what will happen? Oxygen will be less, and you will feel tired and weakness. And last of all, I would like to discuss with you the component of this cell is the lysosomes. How we take chapatis, we take food, and then we use the vegetables, and with vegetables we use the salt, use the peppers, use many other things. Why? Just to create enzymes, so that whatever food you eat, that will be digested, that will be adjusted inside the body, and that is digested means, in other term, this is known as to create enzymes. Function of the enzymes is to dissolve everything and to squeeze everything so that the energy particles can come out. And this is the function of the hormones. This is the function of enzymes inside the body. And in this way, these lysosomes are the enzymes. They are circulating throughout the cell inside, and all the things which are coming into the cells and are to be used by the cell, they are not, cell is not able to use them until they are dissolved, and until they are assimilated. To make them assimilate into the cell cytoplasm, these are the lysosomes. Suppose if food has come up and you eat that one, even with the smaller quantity of food, you will feel indigestions. And if there are enzymes, what do you take? You take some tablets, okay? When you take tablets, what does it mean? It stimulates the enzymatic system in the saliva, just like Tylenol, in the stomach, just like HCl, just like pepsin, just like enterokinase, just like bile, just like insulin, pancreas. So all these things are produced as enzymes just to break down your food so that it can be assimilated into the system. The cytoplasm is a type of solution, and it's not that thick though. But to dissolve everything and mix up in this solutions, we need enzymes. We need to break down the food stuffs, which is coming up from the circulation into the cell. We need to break it down again into small particles, though it is liquid. But even then, it's a particle, more smaller particles, so that it will be mixed up into the cytoplasm, and it may be used by the cell, by the different components of the cells. So this is what lastly we have described you about the cells. And after that we are starting this function, that if any person becomes sick, the ultimate, his body shows that some of the function is not normal: circulatory, respiratory, digestive, any of the system is showing abnormality. The whole body feels that, but ultimately we reach to the conclusion that, oh, he's now having respiratory problems. Oh, it means something is lungs. We reach to the lungs. And ultimately, when we find out, when we trace the lungs and when go deep into the lungs, and ultimately we find out, oh, the cell of the lungs are not normal. Oh, if the cells are not normal, then what is not normal? Who is responsible to circulate the air or the oxygen and to distribute it in a normal way, so that we should not have any respiratory problem, so that we should not have any breathlessness? So we reach to the conclusion, and we know that this is the function of mitochondria. The same way, everything in the cell is responsible to perform a normal functions. So now, first of all, just like we enter into the cell from the outsider wall was just like a fort wall, and we were entering into it by a permeability. There was no doors. Through permeability, we was entering into the cell inside, into the plasmas. So now this cell membrane is a custom department. As I told you about this one, this membrane is a type of custom department which allows certain things to enter into the cell, and some certain things it do not allow to enter into the this, you can say, the selective materials. In other words, you can say the selective materials which is required by the cell, it allows to enter into the cell, and others it do not. In this way, sometimes you take some poisonous things or some dangerous things. Is sometimes, just like, one best example I can give you: a pregnant female having child in his womb, and ultimately she takes some antibiotic, or she takes something, medicines. That medicine is not harming any child, because there is a barrier. What barrier? That is the placenta. Placenta is a type of barrier which transports from mother blood to the child selective materials. Selective materials means which are acceptable by the child body, but the developing fetus. Otherwise, all other things are remaining inside the placenta and going back. In this way, in all the cells, the membranes are having a selective type of quality. And with selective type of quality, selective materials can go inside that. And after that, if the cell membrane is damaged, it means that selection material has gone, that power has gone. Anything can go in. And sometimes the toxic substances, the toxic injection or capsules or medicines, or the food materials even, you take, it goes, it is absorbed by the blood, it circulates into the blood, it enters forcibly, it damages the cell membrane. And it damages the cell membrane means that material, that is toxic materials, which is not acceptable by the cell, and which is not required even, that enters into the cell and damages the inside structures. damages the inside function of that one. And the first thing, what happens with that one? It affects the oxygen. And with every poisonous substances, we feel reaction and we feel breathlessness. We feel anxiety, and that anxiety is especially with the respirations. And we say घबराहट, anxiety. In other language, we say घबराहट. So if we feel anxiety, if anything has been taken up, and that has entered into the cells. Cells means multiple cells, not only one cells. And the function of one organ is damaged in this way. And the first thing, what happens? How the oxygen is carried out into the cell. That's the RBCs. We have many times discussed about the functions of the RBCs, that they are the empty wagons of a rail, empty parts, you can say, which carries the oxygen. And these cells are non-nucleated, means they do not have any back characteristic in that. And they just carry the oxygen. And if anything toxin has gone inside the cell by breaking the barrier of that membrane, the first thing, the cell RBCs will be destroyed. Their shape, because they are also having a membrane, their shape will become smaller, just like bubble. You put the air into the bubble, it enlarges. Then the air goes out, or if you press the bubbles, ultimately air will leak from the openings and it will become so small. In this way, when any toxic substances goes inside the membranes, and then first thing, it damages the radical blood cells, RBCs. It damages the RBCs. You can say the press extra substances has gone up, and then it presses the RBCs, and oxygen is going out, and you feel anxiety, घबराहट, all these things. And when there is less oxygen, ultimately it will produce some symptoms. Medically, this is known as hemolytic anemia. Means because of some toxic substances has entered into the cell, that is why it is causing damages to the these RBCs, and RBCs not carrying the sufficient oxygen which is required by the cell. That is known as hemolytic anemia. And in this way, another thing, what happens because of any toxic substances entering into the cell is these cells develop and replaced within 120 days. Means the life of a RBC, red blood cell, is 120 days. After every 120 days, they are replaced one by one. It's not that a whole sum of RBCs are replaced. No, one by one they are replaced and new cells are forming. The cells are replacing and new cells are taking place in spite of the replaced cells. And ultimately, and the garbage has been removed from the cells. And ultimately, if these cells, because of the long-term effect of the toxins, are not produced normally, and that the RBCs are produced in the long bones, and it means they are not producing normal in shape and normal in consistency or normal in numbers, then what will happen? Ultimately, the less bogies will carry less stuff, and ultimately they will not supply the required oxygen to the cells. And in these conditions, the heart has to pump more. Heart has to pump more frequently. As we know, the normal heart rate is 72 to 80 per minute in a normal range. But when supply is shorting, under those conditions, heart and the system as a whole life wants to compensate the oxygen which is required by the body. So what will do? The heart will pump more, time and again, time and again. So ultimately, this will be a sign at that time when any toxic substances enters the barrier of cell membrane and damages the RBCs. Under those conditions, there will be cyanosis, there will be palpitation, though it's another system. It's a circulatory system. But ultimately, all the systems are cooperating with each other. If one system is damaged, weak, or somehow it's not performing its normal duty, the other systems try to cooperate. Now, the lungs are not taking the normal oxygen and they are not supplying it to the blood, and they are supplying less oxygen to enter into the hemoglobins, which is going back into the circulations. Ultimately, the heart has to pump more. Time and again, he will come into the circulation. So this will be the other sign of this condition when any toxic substance, when any membrane is damaged. Everything is toxic, which is not required from our border. Custom department checks it. But everything which is not required in our country is everything toxic for us. It's dangerous for us, whatever maybe it is. It may be dangerous for us. So it is considered as dangerous. In this way, they cause damage to the hemoglobins, and these hemoglobin deficiency or hemoglobin damages is called hemolytic anemia. And if the new formation of the hemoglobin cell, RBC cell, is not normal, it's a long-term effect of the toxic substances. Then the bones are not preparing these RBCs or WBCs in normal quantity and in normal shapes, and ultimately it will persist as hemolytic anemia for a long term. So, this condition may be because of the membrane is not functioning normally or the membrane has been damaged. This is the first thing we see: cyanosis of the face, palpitations, weakness, and you can say the your cyanosis. Cyanosis has different signs: the blueness of the tip of the nose, blue lips, and also blueness under the eyes, and all these things you presume when there is a loss of hemoglobin, loss in relatively loss of oxygen supply into the cells. And where question of physical sign is concerned for this one, now the membrane is damaged, only we are discussing the damages in the cell. And outwardly, how it is expressed, I'm telling you that first of all, you will see pale skin because oxygen is not going there. And actually, these are the signs of jaundice, because that lack of oxygen is not only in one part of the body or in one organ of the body, everywhere this deficiency is. And when there is a deficiency in the liver cells, automatically this hemoglobin is breaking down more in quantity, and more bilirubin and biliverdin is prepared from the damages or the iron damage in the liver. Because I told you previously that whatever iron from the intestine goes to the liver, it is broken down into bilirubin and biliverdin. And biliverdin are responsible to give color to our eyes, give color to our skin, give color to our stool and urine. And if they are more in quantity, more breakage of the iron, then ultimately more bilirubin, biliverdin will go into the circulations, and they will give yellow type of, they are yellow pigments. These are the yellow pigments prepared from the breakage of the hemoglobin. And in this condition, the body will show up the signs of jaundice. And lips will become pale, nail will become pale, eyes will become pale. All these signs are outsidely signs. And energy level, automatically there is no oxygen, less oxygen. Ultimately, we feel weak energy in these conditions. And fatigue all over. We feel fatigue, tiredness, because whatever the food is there, no matter, because there's no oxygen, there's no fire, and it's not increasing the fire inside the cells, and this is not metabolizing. Actually, the word metabolizing, when food goes inside the body, it is metabolized, means it is converted into energy, required energy, which is required by the body to go further for the development, for the normal functionings. So that is metabolism. And in this way, the metabolic rate declines, and person feels exhausted all the time. Physically, there will be, if this condition runs for a longer period, simply you have taken just simple painkiller, and ultimately it will be cleaned up in a due time through the urine, sweating, breathing, everything. It will be released, because just like you take injections, and doctor says, okay, after 24 hours you have to take another injection. Why? Because they know that within 24 hours, this remnant of these injections will be excreted by the body, because body do not accept any foreigners. Whatever is a foreigners, as a food, even as a medicine, even whatever goes inside the body, that is evacuated in a limited time from the body, through the urine, through the stool, through the sweat, through the breathing, and ultimately it is in decrease, it is evacuated from the body, and then doctor says, okay, you have to take another injection. In this way, I'm saying that continuously, if this system, if this problem damages to the wall, remember, we are discussing only the one component, that's the membrane of the cell, has damaged, because it was controlling in and out of substances into the cells. So that has been damaged. There's no control, or control is damaged at this time, maybe more or less, ultimately, depending on that one. But if it's persisting for a longer periods, the ultimately this damages to the cell is controlled and cleaned by the spleen. First of all, these are prepared in the long bones, circulating into the blood, goes to the spleen. Spleen check what cells are required by the body, what cells are in normal compositions, what cell can perform the normal duty, whatever assigned by those cells. Is a WBC, neutrophil, basophil, eosinophil, monocyte. There are many more cells in the WBCs, and the same way there is hemoglobin, and the assigned duty to the hemoglobin is to provide oxygen. And the spleen is the only one which can scrutinize, which can, you can see, check these cells, and those who are capable of taking the normal range of a function inside the cell, it send it into the circulations. But those who, the cells which are not normal, which will not be capable, according to spleen, which will not be capable to carry on the normal quantity of the oxygen, then it will destroy them and dissolve them, send them into the circulations, so that new cell will be formed. Just like sickle cell anemia and all that, there are many more other diseases you can see under these conditions, means the size of the cell is not normal. Sickle cell anemia, size, if this type of things damages to the cell membrane is persisting for a longer period, and ultimately we can see the sickle cell anemia. There is more damage to the hemoglobin cells, and more damages is not compensated with its production. How much cells are produced regularly by the bone marrow of the bones? That's less. Under those conditions, even untrained even untrained military men are sent to the border side. They are not fully trained. Okay, they are not fully military men, but they are sent to the border. What will do? The same thing will happen. They will not carry out their normal functions. And the same way, this condition is known as sickle cell anemia, because cells are not replacing the damaging cell in the same quantity. That is why from the training camps, we have to send out. Training camp means where they are prepared, where these military men are prepared. That's the long bones. and they are sending the cell, even immature cell, into the circulations, and that is known as sickle cell anemia. So I am saying that if the membrane is damaged, ultimately what will happen? The immature cells will be sent into the circulation, and they will not be able to carry on normal quantity of oxygen, and ultimately a deficiency will continue to grow. Ultimately, more weakness, more these kind of symptoms will continue. And in this way, the acute symptoms, whatever we can see, that abdominal pain, gallstone, tendency to form a gallstone, all because thickness, damages is more, and they are collecting wherever they can collect. In the blood vessels, clotting formation. In the liver, the concentrated bile form the stones. In the kidneys, they form the stones. So tendency to form stone, you know, again, remember it, we are coming from the damages of the membrane. And if membrane is damaged, these are conditions will happen. You will see all these conditions, and you can go to that one. I will tell you what to do for that one. And ultimately, abdominal pain may be there. Ultimately, gallstone tendency to form stones inside the body will persist. And acute symptoms, which immediately needs your attention, which immediately needs the treatment, that is the shortness of breath, palpitation, and actually tachycardia. This term is used as tachycardia when heart is palpating more. 72 to 80 per minute is the normal, but it's palpating 140 times, 130 times. This is known as tachycardia. And when this kind of condition is happening, it means it is not supplying the normal oxygen into the circulations. And the same blood is being supplied to the brain as well, which is controlling the whole function of our body through its 12 pair of cranial nerves. Then what? This condition is called dizziness. Weakness with dizziness. Oh, blindness. You can see that. No, when you wake up from the seat, oh, you feel blindness in your eyes, weak vision. All these things happens if the membrane is damaged in any person. Because of, after that we will find out what's going on. But in short, I'm telling you, from any faulty food, from any medicine, toxic medicine is given to the person, from any other environmental thing, we are entering into environment, there is a toxin. Ultimately, anything can happen which can cause damage to the membranes. And if the membrane is damaged, and that condition which was causing the damages to the membrane is still persisting, it's not one time, okay, one time you take some medication, ultimately it will be relieved. Ultimately, it will be washed out from the body by its normal function, and you will be okay within 2 3 days or in short times. But when anything is persistent, continued, just like in flood area, many people suffer from these kind of conditions, and that is because of the damages of the membrane. The environment is entering into the cell forcibly and damages the membranes. There are many more type of other diseases, breathlessness, weakness, and jaundice. All these things are happening where there is a flood area. In this way, if the condition causing this type of condition is persistent and continued, then there is a anoxia. The term is used, anoxia, when there is a lack of oxygen in the brain. And brain is the main center to control all the body functions. It means when there is anoxia, immediately you will feel dizziness and you will sit down. All these conditions are because of this cell membrane is damaged. And ultimately sometimes the mothers pregnant, at those conditions, their child they are having in their womb, may born with muscular dystrophy, weakness of the muscles. And ultimately, this weakness of the muscles, because the faulty combinations since beginning, the faulty bricks they were making that body, ultimately they will be having muscular dystrophy in their body. In the even the in the when they born, they have these conditions, and ultimately they cannot survive more, because that condition is still surviving, persisting in their body. The same type of material has been used for the construction of their body, and the same material which is faulty materials, the same type of cells are going into his body, and they are not competent to perform the normal function. So the muscular dystrophy will increase. And muscles are everywhere to control the circulation, to control the respiration, to control the muscular things. Everything will become weak. So muscular dystrophy has a different chapter. We will discuss it later again when it will its turn, that what muscular dystrophy is and what are the symptoms of these things. But I am discussing the membranes damages. And in joints, there is a stiffness because there is no oxygen. There is a stiffness of the muscles. All these things happen ultimately. And in old age, not only in old age, the earlier stage of Alzheimer's appears. Mostly, the Alzheimer's or Parkinson's diseases are related to the old age. But sometimes, because of this type of problems, when a person of 40 or 35 comes with you with the signs of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, what you will do? You will see this is because of something is going inside his body which is toxic, and that has damaged the function of your membrane, cell membranes, and everything is going out, coming in, everything. There's no barrier, there's no security guard over there. Membrane was a security guard, and that has been damaged, and that was allowing the things, because of the permeability, because of the limited pressure from outside, limited pressure from inside, and the things were going in and out with that permeability, means pressure. And now that has been damaged, and nobody is controlling any toxins going from outside to inside. And regularly, it is damaging the function of inside components of the cytoplasms. So all these are the Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. All these diseases are mostly the age-related diseases. But if you see these are coming in early age, it means the cell membrane by somehow has been damaged, and we have to find it out. We have to diagnose it. What is causing the damages of the cell membranes? Okay, so this is what I think today our time is over for this one. We will continue with this one, and we will tell you for all the components of the cell, if they are damaged, what type of symptoms and signs you will see outside on the body in our next lecture. And the next lecture will be in Punjabi again, because you know all the three languages I'm covering, one day in English and the other day in Punjabi, other day in Hindi. So in this way, tomorrow's lecture will be in Punjabi, and we will repeat all these things. What happens if the cell membrane is damaged? Contents will be the same, but language, my word, my explanations will be a different type. It's better if anybody can understand Punjabi as well. Yes, they can listen it again, and you will see many other new things I'm saying in my Punjabi language, and there are many new things that are coming up when I delivering this lecture into the Hindi languages. So please remain attached. I'm your host Gurdeep Singh Sandhu, homeopathy consultant. My clinic address is 9701 Sarah N Court, Dublin, California 94568. Phone number is 408 687 1899. Email address is homeomedicine, HOMEOMEDICINE at yahoo.com. So anytime if you are having any problems at any age and you want to get second opinion, you can call me at 408 687 1899, or you can send me an email, homeomedicine, HOMEO medicine to get your second opinion, or even if you want to be treated by a scientific approach of homeopathic medicine. Because homeopathic medicine is not a hit and trial method, it is the actual logical approach to your health, logical approach to the functioning of this body. Okay, how the life, even homeopathy, you can say it is concerned with your life, and a resultant of life is your functioning of the body. So therefore, if you want to be get treated with homeopathic scientific approach, you can call me at 408-687-1899. I am in Dublin area, city of Dublin in California, near San Francisco. So please remain attached. And if ever you see these lectures are beneficial, if you know this one, you can convey this message to your nearest and dearest so that they can listen these lectures and be benefited like you. Thank you. God bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow.